Yeah. We got the signal. Episode number 9, Ruthless Politics.
Episode 9. We're mighty fine.
We're fine at 9. And like a fine wine, here we are again, number 9. One away from a big anniversary. 10 shows is an accomplishment, I think. And we've grown very fast. We want to thank everybody that's also following us on YouTube and on Facebook, and everybody that's listening to the show. We're growing, and we appreciate you. And I had to console Kid Chronic for about 3 days over the passing of David Koch. He's taking it really, really hard.
Oh, man, that was sad, you know, losing an American tycoon.
An icon.
Really lost a couple tears over that one, you know.
Your
poured out a couple beers.
Your buddy Bill Maher, who you interviewed, was the only celebrity, I think, on record, and we're going to talk about Bill Maher on this show, that went on record as pretty much being like, I'm glad this guy's dead, fuck you. Like, the only person that really threw him under the bus.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that's what we expect from Bill Maher. That's kind of his role in the media, is to say the things that we're all thinking, you know. He's like an atheist. Most people are afraid to say they're an atheist. So I expect that from Bill Maher. Like I said, I've interviewed him. He's a cool guy. I'm a big follower of Bill Maher.
You are.
So I think that's just him being honest, you know, and I'm going to go into it. When we get into the David Koch section, I have a couple notes on Koch, and we'll see if you think he's so great after that.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? We're going to go right into...
we got to clean up Epstein.
Yeah.
Our boy Jeffy.
We called it Epstein Overload because there's actually... And by the way, we took a week off, so some of this is stuff that's occurred over a 2-week period. But there's still more going on in this case, and a lot of people... You've got my opinion already. My thought is, forget how he died and all that. The motive is that he's dead, and let's hope that this goes away in time. It feels like it is a little bit. People's interests are all back all over different things. We don't really hit it much, but what?
Maybe this is a successful sweep under the rug. It is getting quieter. It's been 2 weeks, as you said, and there hasn't been a lot of news on it. But let me give you a couple things that I think are going to kind of keep this controversy going forward for just a little bit longer. So they found out that Epstein had broken bones in his neck, and he broke what's called the hyoid bone, hyoid. And it's kind of by your Adam's apple. This bone is broken sometimes when you hang yourself, but more often it's broken in strangulation homicide.
Yes.
So that kind of just adds to it right there, right?
More mystery.
Yes. Guards left Epstein alone for hours. He was on suicide watch. Mm-hmm. He had somebody in his cell before. Now he was left alone for hours, okay? And then this is what's really fishy. 2 days before he died, Epstein signed a will, and the will puts all the holdings into a trust. Okay.
Yeah, this is some of the newer news.
No trustees are listed on the trust. The trust is called the 1953 Trust.
It's super private.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to ask yourself, so all of a sudden he disappears. He's either dead or he's disappeared. And then the money also disappears, and the money is locked up somewhere, so we don't know where the money went. So maybe Epstein's alive and he could use the money, right? And that the trust is going to him, or he knew he was going to die and he was allowed to arrange his affairs in perfect order, mind you, a couple days before killing himself from jail. So that is a lot of coincidences for me.
To add on to what you're saying, fill in some blanks here. It turned out that he had $600 million in assets, which they said is more than what he even anticipated his assets to be. So he actually had more money than he even thought. Like you said, it was 2 days the will was signed before the death. Very, very odd. Another point we brought up, and maybe we didn't bring up, I'm not sure, is Epstein, they said, was meeting with his attorneys like 12 hours a day. He was fighting this, and it was a way to stay out of his cell and all that. So, like, this guy, again, the suicide thing a lot of people are losing on, he wasn't, like, sitting there pulling his hair out talking to a rat named Ben. Like, he was interacting, and he even told those guys, hey, I'll see you Monday. So, I mean, he seemed like he was really with it, which is also strange. One of the executors was named in this, a gentleman by the name of Boris Nikolic. So I'm assuming maybe Russian or Eastern European guy. He said this was all done without his knowledge, that he was blindsided by naming one of the executors, and he's turning it down, mind you. And apparently he is a former science advisor to Bill Gates. And now another tech guy in the Jeffrey Epstein saga, folks, is Bill Gates. Very late name to the mix.
Yep.
Doesn't seem to be in any of the dossiers and all the other shit.
But has been on some of the planes.
But has definitely, and visited him as recent as 2013 post-prison for what everybody knows was public at that point.
The Gates team is trying to say that Epstein came on and was helping Bill Gates distribute more charitable money. I mean, what a convenient answer that in bed with the dirtiest human being alive, but you're in bed with him to distribute charity dollars.
Here's the news. You are very charitable anyways without Epstein's help, Mr. Gates.
Yeah,
you're a very charitable family.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in assets. I mean, it is a huge charity outfit.
Yeah, he's of all these tech billionaires and people that have made a lot of money, he seems to be as charitable or more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. He's a very interesting character. A lot of people don't do their research on Bill Gates. He's a known eugenicist, which is just fascinating that he subscribes to that kind of theory. And he knows that population overload, it could be
one of the
not a
other
good thing.
Keys to this too is that he hired Epstein after Epstein's first arrest. So it wasn't like, Epstein's this great finance guy, I'm hiring him based on his credibility. Bill Gates obviously has the money and he has the infrastructure to vet somebody before he hires them. So they knew full well what Epstein was involved in, and then they got in bed with Epstein anyway. And I can't believe that Epstein's charity advice was worth that risk for him. So there's more to that story there, but
and
we
it's
will
not
obviously
worth that
probably
risk.
Never get it.
And that's why it is such a strange name. We've now seen this guy tied into the tech industry. He wanted to start his own race. He was very giving into the sciences. This guy was tied into everybody. And again, I've heard this time and time again. He's filming these people. We don't know who's been with the kids. We don't know who's doing the dirty shit. We don't know. We know who's been affiliated with this guy. But it is in video. It is in blackmail. And whatever happens with that, folks, we may never know. It is getting swept.
The FBI knows. They've got it all. And that'll be the real question, is what they do with it.
This is absolutely true. And speaking of FBI, a little twist to this, Prince Andrew seems to be, because we had the Bill Clinton, we had the Donald Trump, we had the big boys, Alan Dershowitz. Prince Andrew may be in the most trouble right now. The water's starting to boil around him a little bit. FBI is going into emails that he has with Epstein. I personally believe, I've heard of the Epstein thing way long before a lot of people heard about it, when it was kind of that conspiratorial thing. Prince Andrew's name's always been tied to this guy.
He's always been the most
He's one of the
obvious,
worst ones.
Because what's happened, too, with him is there's a picture. There's actually a photo of him with one of the young underage Epstein girls. And also one of the most famous and most active in the media Epstein girls. So this girl has done interviews. She's been all over. And there's this picture of Andrew who looks like he's having a good time. He's not meeting her in a political or a business setting. And so it seems pretty cut and dry that, Andrew is definitely the most obvious perp, right?
One final note on Epstein, if you don't have anything else to add, I just caught this today, actually, in Washington Post, who I don't always quote, released some information that's also new, which is we've now had a camera that was in the hallway outside that captured footage, but the investigators have deemed it unusable. And the Washington Post, like any good journalist, should say, well, why was it unusable? And they said, we can't tell you why it's unusable, but just know it's unusable.
Look,
now that's been buried as well, an alternate camera angle.
Every time a rock gets overturned, whatever's underneath that rock is quickly covered up by the government. So I don't know what that tells you, but there is basically a lot of information here from Epstein's own files, from Epstein's life, and from Epstein's death that we are not going to see, that they are covering up. I believe in my heart that the FBI knows exactly what's happened here, front to back. They know everyone involved, they have all the evidence, and they know what happened with Epstein's death. But they are going to choose not to tell us, and we'll have to decide as citizens if we want to live in a country that never tells us anything.
This is going to be a telling moment. Yeah, this is, first of all, you created 10 million conspiracy theorists that weren't.
How's that healthy for the country? How can the FBI look at this environment and say, you know what? We know what's happened. We could clear all this up, but we're not going to tell.
If this goes down the way we think it will, you're going to be able to teach a college course on the fall of America based on this whole scenario. This is a very serious scenario with a very seriously high-powered guy. And just because he's not famous like a Trump or a Clinton, he's perhaps bigger than both of them in who he's tied to.
Well, he's bigger than both of them in the fact that, like, they're all three criminals, right? And Epstein's probably the biggest criminal.
Right.
But I think what's really
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think what's really fascinating about the Epstein thing is it just shows in clear, stark, just perfect black and white that presidents are above the law. If you have dirt of a president, not only is a president not going to get in trouble, but your ass might get killed.
There's all sorts of privilege out there. Even the Jussie Smollett case, no matter what you think about or how it went, even this guy who's black, gay, just has one TV show, but he was kind of protected because he's elite. And there is a difference. The haves and the have-nots, it's not even that racial. Charlie Sheen is above the law. Eddie Murphy was above the law. Everybody, it's an interesting thing how it goes. Fame and money and all that certainly
the country is twisted
earn your way
because,
out.
yes, money gets you a lot. And then power gets you even more.
Yeah.
And the politicians have both, so they're very powerful. But it's just fascinating in this country because if our country had any brains, the poor people would be fighting the 1%. But instead, two political parties, which have meaningless change that they can really infect on the country, are arguing it out.
Well, we can go real deep down a rabbit hole here. I personally believe that it's a game being run on the American public on purpose to keep you distracted so that they can run game on you. It's kind of like the classic Vegas trick of you look that way, I drop the coins over here, you look that way, I steal your coins. It's just distraction technique, and that's actually what all magic and illusion is. It's all distraction, and you got powerful people at play that know how to distract you, whether it's football or the Kardashians or whatever, your phone, your internet, your Facebook, whatever, and then they run game. And this Epstein one was done right in our face. And I think that's really
That's what's the
unfortunate.
unusual one, because usually this stuff happens in darkness. But
Right.
this Epstein thing is just government scandal right on the front page of the paper. It's wild.
Yeah. So you pretty much caught up on the Epstein thing.
Is that going to be our last
news.
Epstein piece if we don't have any new news?
I think at this point it would
Oh,
have
man.
to be. Epstein obviously is clickbait, but
For
I think
how good of a story Epstein could have been, we really didn't get a lot of information out of this. We
No.
really didn't. We got like nothing.
everybody's robbed of. First of all, we would have liked to see this guy on trial. I also would have liked to see,
Especially for the victims. Imagine if you're a victim. You've come forward and now nothing.
Well, absolutely. And and by the way, that reminds me, the victims' attorneys are. So here's a funny little caveat that was put in this. Epstein signed in his deal that they could not go after the accomplices or accomplices of Epstein to be charged for federal sex crimes. He had that in the paperwork. So now the attorneys for these girls are saying, well, now that he's dead, you have to tear that up because these girls want to be able to sue everybody, not just Epstein. So it's
But I
going
don't know if the document dies with you, though.
I don't know enough
That was
about
a deal that everybody made,
Yeah.
even though the deal is obviously garbage.
That's kind of some legalese. These girls will get some money. This
We
world is
talked
going to
about
make
this
it
in
tougher.
private, discussing the notes for this show. So let's say he's got this huge estate, hundreds of millions of dollars. The girls sue, right? Obviously, the state has a boatload of money to get great lawyers. The girls end up settling for pennies on the dollar. He uses a few $1 million, and someone either close to Epstein gets millions, or in the conspiracy theory, Epstein's still alive and he's in Moscow somewhere, and he just goes and takes the money out. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Even
but I
Epstein's
just
gotta
think
be in
it's
Moscow.
It's
I
so
love it.
weird. It's yeah, right. Sorry about that. But it's so weird that
Not even
the
Leningrad?
trust that the money goes into this trust, right? The
Right.
1953 trust, and there's executors on the trust, but there's no trustees. So we don't even know where, once all this settled out, where that money's going to go. I mean, that is wild.
Everything's funny about this, and
And say what you want, he must be good at finance because this is clever as fuck. I mean, how the hell? The whole world is looking for this information. It's not available.
all the while, and we'll go to break, I think, on this note, because I know we've been doing that. All the while we're discussing this, and I'll say it again, we said it on every podcast that we talked about Jeffrey Epstein. Where is Ghislaine Maxwell, the girl, the lady,
She's
the
living in New
procurer?
England.
She's roaming
she's
free.
in the States, completely
She's
roaming free.
free.
It's not like she's on the run. I mean, she's like going to the country club.
Seems to be. She was In-N-Out Burger. You can cue it up, Jesse. We'll go out on that note. She was having a fucking cheeseburger.